Welcome back. A new Quinnipiac University poll finds that in a hypothetical 2024 presidential matchup, President Biden has a 5-point lead against President Trump. 49% of voters say that they'd vote for Biden if the election was held today. 44% say that they would vote for Trump. Meanwhile, a new Reuters Ipsos poll finds the former president dominating the GOP field. 47% of Americans support Trump, well above the 19% for Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Joining us right now is the Trafalgar Group founder and chief pollster, Robert Cahaly. Robert, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for being here today. How would you assess the race today?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. What we're seeing today is when you look at all these polls, you know, the Reuters and the Quinnipiac notwithstanding, the average right now is Biden and Trump are both at about 43%, with Biden having, and the RCP average having about a 0.5% lead over Trump. Now, one of the biggest measures you can tell the difference is the polls that are of likely voters, Trump does better. The polls that are registered voters, Biden does better. So there's a little game with the methodology there, but it's certainly neck and neck, and certainly in a race that'll come down to the Electoral College and should not be close in the popular vote. It is.
Yeah, I spoke with President Trump about this last week, and I asked him about his plan for independence and whether or not he can beat Joe Biden, because so many critics in the Republican Party question it. Here's what he said to that. Watch. Do you think you can beat Joe Biden?
Well, I'm leading in almost all of the polls against him. I'm leading by a lot, much more than Ron is leading. Ron's losing to him in many of the polls. I think we beat him by a lot. I don't know that he's going to be the candidate, but if he is the candidate, I think we'd beat him by a lot.
Do you have a plan to get independents and suburban women to believe that your policies will make their lives better?
It's called safety. It's called the border. It's called a strong military. It's called low taxes and low interest rates.
What do you think, Robert? Are those the issues that independents want answered? Because that same Quinnipiac poll finds nearly half of voters would consider voting for a third-party presidential candidate next year as well. 47% said that they would consider it. Another 47% said that they wouldn't. Is that the group that Trump or Biden have to go toward, the independents?
Well, it certainly is a group they have to go toward, and I think President Trump was right about these issues of security and safety, and you know, frankly, the economy. But one of the things you have this interesting dynamic now is, you know, 4 years ago it was what Biden promised versus Trump's record. If it were Biden versus Trump again, it would be two records versus each other. Americans are very good with simple A/B tests. Which 4 years did you like better? And I think that's a contrast that's going to do well with independent voters. But this wild card of a third-party thing and the no labels is kind of picking up more. And if you look at one of the big differences between 2016 and 2020 was Jill Stein's margin as the third-party candidate in most states was greater than Trump's margin of victory, and we just didn't have that in 2020. So anything that pulls people in the middle away, third-party, anything like that, I think is going to have a net benefit to Trump.
Yeah, Lee Carter.
So one of the things you pointed out, the difference between likely voters and registered voters, and there's a significant difference in who gets the advantage there. Tell me about what you're seeing, the likely voters in the 5 states that are going to matter the most. Obviously, you said it's going to come down to the Electoral College. When you look at states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, tell me what you're seeing there and why which way is it going to advantage?
Well, economy is huge there. There's a significant amount of people in these states. You know, we talk about there being 2 justice systems. Well, people feel like there's kind of a 2-tiered economy. I mean, the people that are at the top are doing well, and the people at the bottom aren't doing well. And those people at the bottom, a lot of them are traditional Democrat voters in these swing states. And the other thing is when you ask, and this is about security, when you ask people in those swing states, would Russia have invaded Ukraine if Trump was president? In every single state, the answer is no.
Wow.
among all voters. So that's a significant number when you start looking at like Russia and China together, and how much of a threat the American public starts to feel from that. There's that level of security that you might not like Trump, but he'll be strong, and people are afraid of weakness.
Now, Democrats also point out, though, they think that this is going to come down to abortion in some of these states. So they're saying that independent women, despite the fact that the economy is most important, exactly how Donald Trump answered it, they're saying that they're going to vote Democrat to protect women's rights. And I've seen some polling that says as many as 7 in 10 independent women say that that is something that will drive in the polls. What are you seeing there?
Well, what we've seen there is in most of the swing states, the abortion matter is settled. Like abortion law isn't going to change in Michigan, and it's not going to change in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And so when they're concerned about abortion, they're no longer worried about it in their state, because as a state-by-state decision, it's only the state where it's in flux, where the numbers are close, that is such a big issue. So a lot of these states, it's really not in jeopardy, and so they hear about the national stories, but they're not experiencing it personally, because there's not been a tightening of the laws in their states.
That's a good point. A new Monmouth University poll finds 62% of the people disapprove of President Biden's handling of inflation. Just 34% approve. That didn't stop the Biden administration, however, from pushing what they're calling Bidenomics. So that's obviously going to be a major issue. Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about the poll yesterday. Here's how she took that. Watch.
A new Monmouth poll shows that Americans still disapprove of the president's handling of inflation. A few weeks into this new Bidenomics push, how do you rate how you guys are doing?
The polls don't tell the whole story. The data shows the combination of unemployment and inflation is in near historic lows. Consumer confidence is increasing, and also wages are rising. We're going to continue to have those conversations with the American public.
Actually, real wages are down about 3% since President Biden took office, Robert. Your reaction in terms of what's resonating with voters, the issues?
It's absolutely what I was just saying, is there is this feeling of there are two economies. So many of the people, you look at this full employment, there's lower unemployment numbers. So many people are saying, yeah, but the jobs aren't very good that they have. And so they have seen a downturn in their wages. You can see it with your credit card data. People are living on their credit cards. They're a little less optimistic. They're feeling inflation. But the people who are above it just don't feel it at all. And so there is, again, this feeling of certain people at the top are doing great. If you happen to work in the recyclable industry, if you happen to work in the alternative energy or electric cars, but if you don't, then you're feeling this tightening, and those are the voters that are actually a big part of the Trump coalition, kind of that blue-collar Midwestern voter.
Sure. Real quick, Robert, are you expecting Trump to be the nominee for the GOP?
At this point, I would say, it is that's where the safe money is. That's where a strong bet is.
Yeah.
A lot can happen. This is a long time. DeSantis has a lot of money. There are a lot of things happening. We see Ramaswamy just moving so fast.
Yeah. Vivek has done
he's
really
inheriting
well.
a lot of people who like Trump.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just the Reuters poll alone, he went from 3% to 9% to third place in 1 month.
Yeah, that's incredible. Robert, thanks very much. We will catch up soon. We appreciate your insights.